How would you like a 15% discount to my daily email, the stack of stuff, the show notes, discounts to the conference, all of that? All you need to do is text the word show to 33777. You'll get the annual subscription with a 15% discount to my daily email. You'll get the stack of stuff, the links to the show notes, discounts to the conference, and so much more. All you have to do is text the word show, SHOW, to 33777. Text show to 33777.
Welcome to the Eric Erickson Show podcast, Hour 2.
Y'all, I don't think I have been this happy. Literally, as we're coming back from commercial break, I get an email from Delta telling me that the Wi-Fi is out on the plane this evening on my flight. And I'm like, you mean nobody's going to be able to call me or text me? So my boss called me yesterday, and he called twice. And the first time I didn't answer because literally I was in the middle of doing box jumps at the gym. And he called back. He's like, I guess I better take this. It's like, you don't want me heavy. I didn't want to be heavy breathing on you. And he's like, I don't know. But I'm just like, at the gym, I had like 5 different phone calls while I was at the gym, and they were calls that I couldn't not take. Put it this way, I had my phone in Do Not Disturb, but they were all the people who have the power to get past the Do Not Disturb. Yes, those of you listening right now who called and I answered while I was at the gym, you have the power to bypass my Do Not Disturb. But nonetheless, none of you will be able to get me. None of you will be able to get me this evening while I'm on this flight. I'm so excited. But y'all, I'm kind of done with people. So I'm not a people person. I hang out with people, but I've been exhausted with the amount of humanity I've had to deal with. So anyway, all right, y'all aren't tuned in to hear about that. The phone number is 877-973-7425. If you text donate to 33777, we're raising money to feed people Thanksgiving meals with Hungry for a Day around the country. Great partner. Text donate to 33777. Any donation helps. A donation of $40 will literally feed a family of 4 a Thanksgiving meal. Did you see the picture of Joe Biden and Donald Trump in the Oval Office or at the White House or with Jill Biden? Now, Melania Trump did not come. People close to the Trump team said she declined to come because she still felt insulted over the FBI raid of her home and didn't want to be there. But Jill Biden apparently sent a lovely note to Melania Trump from what we were told. No hard feelings. And Joe Biden and Donald Trump had a fantastic meeting. It lasted more than 2 hours. Members of the press grilled the White House team on how on earth you could have a meeting with a monster who destroyed democracy. After all, that's what Joe Biden said. He's a threat to democracy. So how on earth could you allow something like this to happen, Karine Jean-Pierre?
Why does President Biden feel compelled to invite President-elect Trump to the White House and continue a tradition that wasn't followed 4 years ago? Is it possible that the politics in this country have sort of evolved past the norms?
I mean, look, that's an easy question to answer, honestly, when it comes to why President Biden is doing this, because he believes in the norms, he believes in our institution, he believes in a peaceful transfer of power. You heard him speak to this directly just last week when he was in the Rose Garden 2 days after the American people made their decision on this election. And it is important to him. It is important not just because it's important to him, but it's important to the American people. He said the American people deserve this. They deserve a peaceful transfer of power.
Yes, they deserve a peaceful transfer of power. What I think is interesting is the reporter, and I'm not sure which reporter it is, but the remarkable nature of the question. Why? Why would he do this? Haven't we evolved past such norms? This man is a threat to democracy. In fact, progressives are very upset with Joe Biden for doing this. Progressives, of course, are looking for reasons to complain about Joe Biden at this point because, well, they're very upset with Joe Biden for not getting out of the way sooner. But again, if you weren't here yesterday, let me see if I can find this clip real quick from yesterday. Yeah, let me play this again. This is Harry Enton on CNN talking about Donald Trump's gains in the bluest of blue cities in America.
And hopefully it's just a temporary one. We learned that consumer prices increased by 2.6% in October year over year. Now, that was exactly as expected.
No, that's the wrong one. That's Matt Egan over about, consumer prices, inflation going up. And this is the Harry Enton one, which ties into the Matt Egan clip. Accident, but it worked out.
Back in 2017, the liberal cities were the resistance, the core of the resistance. What happened in 2024? You think of a major city in the United States, Donald Trump put up the best Republican performance for a Republican nominee for president in at least 20 years, if not the entire 21st century. We're talking about Chicago, Los Angeles, New York City, San Francisco. Across the map, Donald Trump put up historically strong numbers for Republican candidate, for president, in places that, truthfully, if you had asked me 8 years ago, I would have never thought possible.
Yes. In blue wall cities, Chicago, Los Angeles, San Francisco, New York, Washington, D.C., every single part of the country saw a red shift, including the deep blue cities of America. And so Joe Biden has invited Donald Trump to the White House, and progressives are furious. But again, Joe Biden himself used the threat to democracy rhetoric. Joe Biden himself is one who blasted Donald Trump. Joe Biden himself is one who was outraged by Donald Trump. And here he is, all smiling and happy, just campaign rhetoric. You know, there was a point in this country where candidates could eviscerate each other and then be friends afterwards. They recognize campaign trail, campaign rhetoric. Nowadays, in postmodern America, everybody takes these things very literally. Everybody wants to believe them. The left sure does. So I read a political website. It's not a political website. It's a tech website. But he sometimes gets political. And I don't want to leave his name out of it. He's struggling right now. No, it's not the one you're thinking of. So I'm reading this website. And the reason I read this website is this guy is, I would call him a communist. But he finds the coolest stuff on the internet. He really does. We have very similar cultural interests, even as he's a communist, and it's so predictable. Like, I know if there's a shooting in the country, I'm going to go to his website. It's going to be all about gun control. If there's a storm, it's going to be all about climate change and how we shouldn't help people who are conservatives because they brought it on themselves. And it's very predictable. But the cultural stuff that he finds, the cool movies and stuff, we have similar interests, and it's kind of wild. But I noticed he's very excited about Disney bringing back the Andor series. I am too. It's a great series. So Disney Plus has a series. It's going to be 2 seasons, and this will be the final season, it seems, called Andor. And it's about Cassian Andor. If you ever saw the prequel to Star Wars about retrieving the plans to the Death Star, it was a great movie. It really was a fantastic movie called Rogue One. And one of the heroes is a guy named Cassian Andor. And this TV series provides his backstory with the rise of the Resistance and the Rebel Alliance, and Mon Mothma leading the Resistance and the Rebellion, and she was a senator and all this. And it gives all their backstories. And this guy comments on how he's so excited that Andor is coming back and what we can learn from the radicalization of Cassian Andor into leading La Resistance. Of course. You know, it's a trend among the authoritarian and totalitarian regimes of the world that they always find themselves to be the hero. Always. Do you think the Nazis woke up in the morning and saw themselves as the bad guy? Of course not. Now, the left can say the same thing. You trappers think you're the heroes. I'm sorry, but when you have an overwhelming number historically of Black and Hispanic voters voting for Donald Trump, and you've decided they're the bad guys, you might have a little black mustache. The Chinese communist students engaging in the struggle sessions against the professors that they beat to death in the town square, I assure you they thought themselves heroes. And I guarantee you that the Hamas activists on college campuses think that they're the heroes right now, the La Resistance, and the media fanboys over them because the media itself is in on the mix, whether it's CNN or MSNBC. Listen to this story. The University of Rochester, New York, found wanted posters of Jewish faculty members on campus on Sunday night. The act is disturbing, divisive, and intimidating and runs counter to our values as a university, says University President Sarah Mangelsdorf. Furthermore, several of those depicted appear to have been targeted because they're members of our Jewish community. We view this as anti-Semitism, which will not be tolerated at our university. This isn't who we are. This goes against everything we stand for, and we have an obligation to reject it, she added. The school's Department of Public Safety immediately began taking the posters down, highlighting the difficulty of the task in the statement. The process is painstaking because of the strong adhesive used to affix the posters, which in some cases cause damage to walls, floors, chalkboards, and other surfaces. Now, if Matt Gaetz goes to the DOJ, this is the sort of stuff he needs to investigate and prosecute under the civil rights laws. But do you think the people who hung the posters looked in the mirror and said, "We're the bad guys"? No, they did not. They looked in the mirror and thought they were heroes standing for the people of Gaza. The progressives fetishizing the return of the Andor series, that you're not the resistance. You're standing in the way of the will of a bunch of black and Hispanic voters who rejected you. It's wild to me that these people, they cannot view themselves as the bad guy. Now, I realize very few people other than what's his name in Despicable Me wakes up and looks in the mirror and says, "I'm the bad guy." They never do. But maybe you should get a clue. You're no hero. And also, you lost an election. That's it. You can fantasize yourself in your PJs about being some sort of warrior. You're banging away on your keyboard. That's it. You're not a hero. You're not a hero. And if you're outraged at Joe Biden for maintaining the peaceful transfer of power, something you were upset about Donald Trump for not doing, you have become the people you hate. And that, I think, is the bottom line here. So many of the people who are upset at Joe Biden for welcoming Donald Trump, a man he said was a threat to democracy, to the White House, because the voters rejected Joe Biden's argument and said, "Nope, we think we're going to go with him." Joe Biden is not the bad guy here. Joe Biden is not the bad guy. Joe Biden is trying to return things to normal, doing what presidents typically do. Donald Trump did not do that. In 2020, he insisted it was stolen. Okay. All right. Well, now we've returned to normal. Return to normal. And I'm okay with that. Who's not okay with that is the progressive left that wanted a return to normal. And now the voters have essentially said, this is more normal than what Joe Biden gave us. So it turns out they didn't really want normal. They just wanted to be in charge. They wanted to be in charge. And they got swept out of power. And of course, they're not the bad guys. It's the black voters and the Hispanic voters and the married women. They are the bad guys. They are the ones who voted to destroy the country and hand it over to an autocrat who will be gone in 4 years. By the way, Trump yesterday joked before the House Republicans that, maybe I'll stick around for a third term if you guys want me, and was laughing. He was clearly making a joke. And the reporters in Washington were like, "See, we told you he's never leaving." You people are humorless shrews. He was making a joke. He was telling a funny, but you've lost your sense of humor, and it's one of the reasons you lost. You were laughed at, not laughed with, because you couldn't laugh. And now you're upset with the man you could have thrown out of office and chose not to throw out of office. You never rose any pressure against Joe Biden, and now he's returned the world to normal, and you're upset the world has gone back to normal because normal means you're not in power. Tough. Welcome. It is Eric Erickson. We have our first celebrity with the courage of her convictions. Eva Longoria, despiser of Republicans, has announced she will be fleeing the United States with her family to Mexico, a third world hellhole unless you're wealthy enough to live in an area with great security. That's where she's going to go. She's leaving Los Angeles, itself a third world hellhole, for Mexico and Spain. She's also going to Spain. Oh, to be a precious celebrity who can fly the world and avoid the United States. She'll only come to Los Angeles for business. Now, if you read the subtext of it, basically, she's been doing this for a while, but now she wants everyone to know, I have left the United States. Good riddance. Who cares? Nobody particularly cares. There will be more of these, and I'm okay with that, too. I'm totally okay with that. They leave the country when their side loses. And she's going to go to a country that is actually on the verge of collapse. Mexico is a failed narco state. But if you have money, you don't have to see it. And that's the most remarkable thing to me, are the number of wealthy people who wanted Joe Biden, who insisted Joe Biden's the guy, who insisted Kamala Harris was actually the gal, who did not have to lead a life or live a life affected by the American economy. And so they're blaming Americans who were affected by the economy, blaming Americans who couldn't afford the economy, but they themselves will be just fine. They themselves never have to worry about it. The isolated bubble in which these people live is absurd. You know, Brett Bozell, God bless him, media research center, one of the best pieces of advice I ever got when my career was starting to take off. Brett Bozell said, do one thing for me, do not move to Washington or New York. Says you may be deprived of some opportunities, but you'll be grounded in the real world. This is not real. And I'm glad I took him up on that and have stayed in Middle Georgia. We love our kids' school, our church, our friends. And yeah, it would have been a bubble. The people I meet who live in Washington, they don't live in the real world. And these celebrities in Hollywood, they don't live in the real world. They're disconnected from it. They don't get it. And they don't particularly care either. So good riddance. I hope more of them leave. Folks, no institution works harder to give young people the best education in America than my favorite college, Hillsdale College. For 180 years now, Hillsdale's mission has been to develop the minds and improve the hearts of its students. And today, in just 30 seconds, you can learn what it means by watching a short video at ericforhillsdale.com. Since 1844, before the Civil War, Hillsdale is focused on learning, character, and faith, and providing not just the kind of education needed to preserve liberty. They extend their mission nationwide through outreach efforts like their free digest of liberty, Imprimis. Too many colleges and universities today indoctrinate their students to hate America. At Hillsdale, students learn how America became the freest and most prosperous nation in history. You know, Hillsdale, one of the very first institutions in this country to integrate as well, because they were committed to every American, regardless of race, understanding and appreciating American liberty. At a time when so many college campuses are just divided, Hillsdale students sign an honor code promising to respect the rights of others and rise to self-government. Take some time to learn what it means about Hillsdale College, what makes it unique. Go to ericforhillsdale.com. That's ERICK, ericforhillsdale.com. Welcome. Well, there's some breaking news here I got to get to. Welcome. It's Eric Erickson here. The phone number 877-973-7425. Before I get to anything else, this is breaking news. Source here is Nick Schifrin. He's the Foreign Affairs Defense Correspondent for PBS NewsHour. For the first time, the FBI and the, I think he tagged the wrong person here, the CIA, looks like the FBI is acknowledging the extent of Chinese telecommunication hacks. We have identified, this is the quote, we have identified that People's Republic of China affiliated actors have compromised networks at multiple telecommunication companies to enable the theft of customer call records data, the compromise of public-private communications of a limited number of individuals who are primarily involved in government or political activity, and the copying of certain information that was subject to U.S. law enforcement requests pursuant to court order. This is from the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency and the FBI. Let me read you the full statement here. That was the excerpt. The FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency released the following statement. The U.S. government's continued investigation into the People's Republic of China targeting of commercial telecommunications infrastructure has revealed a broad and significant cyber espionage campaign. Specifically, we have identified that PRC-affiliated actors have compromised networks at multiple telecommunications companies to enable the theft of customer call records data, the compromise of private communications of a limited number of individuals who are primarily involved in government or political activity, and the copying of certain information that was subject to U.S. law enforcement requests pursuant to court orders. We expect our understanding of these compromises to grow as the investigation continues. The Federal Bureau of Investigation and the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency continue to render technical assistance, rapidly share information to assist other potential victims, and work to strengthen cyber defenses across the commercial communications sector. We encourage any organization that believes it might be a victim to engage its local FBI field office or CISA. That is breaking news. What is notable here is that this is the first time the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency and FBI have publicly said that it's the People's Republic of China directly. There have been hints. There have been suggestions it was a foreign actor capable of doing it, but it's China. Now, there's a related story to all of this. Remember Huawei. Huawei is the Chinese telecommunications company that starts with an H, not a W. It's pronounced Huawei. And there's also ZTE, another Chinese company. You have to remember. So, for example, just back up, tangent. I have a drone. I haven't flown my drone in a while. I love my drone. I hadn't flown it in a while. It's a Phantom 5 drone from DJI. DJI has kind of moved from the Phantom 5s into the Mavics, which are great little drones. I've got a number of friends who have them. DJI is a Chinese Communist Party-controlled company. Several years ago, Xi Jinping decided that every Chinese company needed to sign attestations that their company would focus itself on the advance of the Chinese Communist Party and state. So if you're a Chinese communist country or company of any kind, you are required to find a way to advance the mission of the People's Republic of China. So if you're DJI and you fly drones with high-resolution photography that connect to Wi-Fi, the allegation is that you may actually be also being used to spy. Huawei, we know, is. Don't hold me to this, but I think it was ZTE. You know, I mentioned the story before, and a truck driver got mad at me because I was staring at a tiny screen trying to get the interstate number right, and I misread it because the screen was so small and I couldn't read the number. Highway, Interstate 94 through Montana. But wait, it's not just Interstate 94 through Montana. It is also Interstate 15 north of Utah. Interstate 15 north of Utah goes north into Idaho and up through Idaho, and then it connects over to US 90. So the I-15 and US 90 corridor, goes up, again, this is important. It goes, I-15 goes north of Salt Lake. It branches off north of Trimmington, north of Salt Lake from US 84. It goes up through Idaho, runs through Idaho Falls, and then it crosses into Montana, goes through Dillon all the way up to Butte and dead ends into I-90, just to the west of Butte. There is a massive amount of U.S. military airspace and corridors up I-15 through Utah, Idaho, and Montana. Now, here's what's notable about it. I think it was ZTE. Don't hold me to that, but I'm pretty sure it was ZTE. Went into Butte. Went into Missoula, which is along I-90, northwest of I-15. And went into Ogden and Salt Lake City, just south of I-15. They're on US 84 or I-84. And they volunteered to put in traffic cameras. This Chinese company said it wanted to display its technology, and the technology had AI, and that AI would allow these local weather forecasters and local traffic stations to pick up on it. Is there a storm coming? We can identify it, and we can send you an alert, so you don't have to have a team of people constantly staring at the cameras. And they also said, you know what? In addition to all that cool stuff, if there are wrecks, we'll be able to identify the wrecks. So you won't have to have a 24/7 team of traffic people staring at the cameras. We'll send you the alerts so your people can be doing other stuff, and we'll send you the alerts. And they said, fantastic. And so from Ogden, Utah, up 85, and then all across I-15 up to Idaho Falls, and then from Idaho Falls all the way up to Butte, through Dillon, all those places. They put up these cameras. They put them in Missoula. They put them in Bozeman on I-90. Turns out that these cameras were also relaying military convoys. The number of trucks, the type of trucks, what they were hauling, all that stuff. The software, someone from the U.S. government, I am very, very reliably told during the Trump administration, went and hacked one of the cameras and saw what they were doing. The national security advisor for Donald Trump and the director of national intelligence, at the time, John Ratcliffe, who's now going back to the CIA, called contractors and said, go cut all these cameras down. Take them down immediately. Do not wait for permission. Do not ask. Go get rid of them. The Chinese company had supposedly been doing a great service for the states and for the local TV networks, putting in these cameras to monitor traffic and weather. And the entire time we're spying on the military, on the routes, the convoys, the types of vehicles, the numbers of vehicles, all that sort of stuff, and relaying that information back to China. It's what these Chinese companies do. And now the Chinese, instead of putting ZET and Huawei in our country, have now hacked into, we believe, don't hold me to it, they're not saying who, but it sounds like they might have gotten into Verizon's network and AT&T's network and T-Mobile's network and others. Because the U.S. government, for FISA, has insisted on a backdoor into these networks. It's one of the reasons Apple, for example, refuses to put in backdoors for government stooping. The government says, well, Apple, if you don't put backdoors, like the iPhone is a very secure phone. This is why you have blue and green chat bubbles on the iPhone. The blue bubbles mean your chat is end-to-end encrypted. The government and the Chinese cannot take your iPhone messages and read them because they're end-to-end encrypted. They have to have access to the physical device. And now Apple has put in a new software update where if your phone hasn't been used in a day, it automatically restarts. So you got to re-enter your password to avoid snooping. It's a privacy concern. The government hates it. But this is the sort of reason why. Any communication from iPhone to iPhone, the Chinese couldn't get their hands on. But if it was a green chat bubble, somebody used an iPhone or they used an Android device, well, guess what? Even the newer systems, SMS is very insecure, the RCS system. So SMS is your standard text message. There's a new system coming on called RCS, which is slightly better, but it's not end-to-end encrypted. It's still easily hackable. And the Chinese have been spying on all of that. The Chinese have been spying on all of that data. And the government doesn't know how to get them out of the system. The government doesn't know. They've been trying, but there's malware in the system now. They've got to go in and they've got to figure out how to get the malware. China has done this to us. This should be treated as an act of war. This is why Mike Waltz is a great national security advisor. This is why Marco Rubio is a great Secretary of State. I'm concerned about Tulsi Gabbard. I really am. Tulsi Gabbard has aligned with the enemies of this country repeatedly. I'm deeply concerned with her as Director of National Intelligence. But Rubio's a strong pick. Walz is a brilliant pick for national security advisor to the president. John Ratcliffe at the CIA is a brilliant pick, and Ratcliffe will do a good job of purging the wokes from the CIA and also getting rid of the spies. You know, the Israeli information that the CIA had was compromised by an Iranian sympathizer and leaked from a CIA operative in Cambodia. These are great people, but I worry about the Chinese spies. There are lots of Chinese spies inside who have infiltrated our intelligence networks, and we need to find them. And some of them are great American citizens who they don't care. They're getting a lot of money from China. We need to find these people. We need to find them, and we need to get rid of them. And we need to get rid of this technology that is wrapped up inside our telecom infrastructure. Americans for Prosperity has been sounding the alarm on some of these compromises from China, national security, and also common sense conservative reforms that can actually strongly protect our privacy while also combating foreign powers hostile to us. They have great common sense conservative reforms, and Americans for Prosperity has chapters in just about every state. They would love to partner with you. If you would love to be a member, you're interested in them, go to americansforprosperity.org/volunteer today. americansforprosperity.org/volunteer. You can sign up with Americans for Prosperity, and you can fight for freedom, for common sense conservative reforms. They'll teach you how to be a door knocker if you want to get people involved in the elections. They'll teach you how to just advocate for common sense conservative reforms to your local government, your state government, and they'll give you all the information to share with your friends as well, making you the reliable person your friends come to for information on common sense reforms for border security, for national security, to advance freedom for families, to support school choice. You'll get all that information right at your fingertips. You will be the brilliant mind of your friends with a conservative bent. All you have to do is go to americansforprosperity.org/volunteer today and sign up with AFP. They got chapters in just about every state. Welcome back. It's Eric Erickson here. Governor Ron DeSantis has instructed the Secretary of State Cord Byrd to formulate and announce a schedule for upcoming special elections immediately to fill Matt Gaetz' seat in the U.S. House of Representatives. Now, Robert Costa, who's a well-sourced CBS reporter, is saying that he's been talking to members of the Senate, and they're really hoping that the Matt Gaetz nomination flames out, but he's not sure many of them have the will to fight Donald Trump if that's who he really wants. He might get him, although all you need are 4 members of the Senate to say no. All you need are 4 members of the Senate from the Republican side to say, nope, you can't have him. Now, I want to talk to you about blue sky. Yes. So progressives are blaming Elon Musk. They say it's his fault Donald Trump got elected. You know, they're perfectly fine with billionaires so long as the billionaire's last name is Soros, engage in American elections. But how dare Elon Musk do what George Soros did? And they say that Elon Musk is the reason Donald Trump got elected, and so they're leaving Twitter. The most notable thing to me about it are the number of reporters who've decided to leave. The number of reporters. Now, why? Because these reporters, they're kind of giving away their bias, are they not? They wanted a progressive bubble. They did not want to. They didn't want to participate on a level playing field. They could be on social media, on Twitter, but They themselves have antipathy for Elon Musk. So they're fleeing. And it tells you about the ideological makeup of the media. As I said yesterday and the day before, and there's no reason to treat this as a broken record, but members of the press, they missed the Springfield, Ohio story. They missed the Puerto Rico vote story. They missed how much abortion was going to be dominant. They missed that there wasn't going to be a massive gender gap of women, even though there was a massive gender gap for men. They missed all these things because they talk to progressives and they use the progressive worldview as what's happening in the world, not reality. So now on Twitter, where they might have an alternate opinion, they've all left to go to Blue Sky, where they never have to confront people who disagree with him. They can be assured they're the Cassian Andors leading la resistance. It's kind of silly, but it tells you everything you need to know about the media. Most especially, it tells you they have no desire to correct the problems causing their collapse. They have no desire to fix what ails them. They're in a bubble, and they don't want to leave the bubble. And instead of looking at the election results as proof they're in a bubble from which they need to be disabused, no. They've decided to interpret it as the bad guys won, and they're the good guys. That's kind of the problem. Now, when we come back, by the way, I should note before I move on two things. One, Kyle Smith from National Review points out that 34% of progressive activists say they're proud to be an American. Only 34%. And yet 70% of Black Americans are proud to be an American. So white progressive activists are not proud to be Americans, but Black Americans are proud to be Americans. And also, the University of California, Los Angeles is releasing a survey telling progressives that actually, the exit polls are wrong. You didn't really lose Latino voters. Don't pay attention to the exit polls. They're wrong. Yeah, the epistemic closure of the progressive mind. When we come back, it applies to climate change and global warming. A big fire out there they're saying was climate change. Well, turns out it was arson. I've got the details when we come back.